It would seem, Lord Derby, the English people have shown a preference for a Conservative government to be formed by Sir Robert Peel.
Yes, Your Majesty.
I am pleased by Mr. Gladstone's defeat. He has always addressed me as if I were a public meeting, and what is more, one that agreed with him.
Yes, Your Majesty. No, Your Majesty.
Lord Derby, you must learn to curb your wit.
Yes, ma'am.
To my mind, but one thing mars the Conservative victory. The party includes in its ranks a Mr. Benjamin Disraeli. That he might rise to a ministry in Sir Robert's government is to me most distressing.
Her Majesty has never, to my knowledge, met Mr. Disraeli.
Dear Albert, who understands such things far better than anyone, is of the opinion that Mr. Disraeli has not one single element of the gentleman about him.
Yes. If I may, Your Majesty, a ministry in Sir Robert Peel's cabinet is the logical reward for Mr. Disraeli's long, invaluable service to the Tory party. It is also his just reward.
Lord Derby, you will convey our sentiments to Sir Robert.
I shall require nothing but tea, thank you, Charles. I shall breakfast after my ride. Well, I hope you'll excuse me, Mr. Gladstone.
Surely, Sir Robert, your morning ride is less important than an understanding between us.
Would you have a man deny himself his first, perhaps his only pleasure in life?
A Prime Minister must deny himself many things.
Your presence here, the leader of the opposition party in the home of Her Majesty's Prime Minister, verges on the indiscreet.
Mrs. Gladstone and I are here at your invitation, Sir Robert.
Yes, politics.
We Liberals did not oppose you in the recent general election so strongly as we might have, Mr. Prime Minister. We've done our part, sir. Now you must do yours. There is this question of your party's Mr. Disraeli.
Yes.
Should he be given a cabinet ministry in your administration, he could be annoyingly obstructive. He's not so cooperative as you, sir.
Disraeli's ambition has always been to be Prime Minister of England.
Exactly.
Now you would ask that he be robbed of even the consolation prize of a cabinet ministry.
Yes.
Yes, but you must excuse me. My morning ride is long overdue.
Mr. Prime Minister.
I will not be denied this pleasure.
We've not resolved the question of Mr. Benjamin Disraeli.
Good morning, Corey.
Good morning, Mrs. Disraeli.
Oh, what a heavenly day. The primroses are out in bloom all along the edge of the woods.
These books arrived from Mr. Disraeli's publishers. A number of copies of another novel, it seems, he's written.
Dizzy's written a new novel? Well, isn't that nice?
Frankly, I was shocked.
Yes, it does rather take one aback. He disappears for a moment here, a moment there, and he rises early, comes to bed late, and then presto, one morning, a fine, healthy book is deposited on our doorstep. I won't read it now. He'll want to surprise me. I should have suspected this one. He's been plagued by sleeplessness for months.
It's not when he wrote it that troubles me, but why, and at a time like this?
Yes. Well, there's no letter for Mr. Disraeli from the Prime Minister.
No, but there was a letter for you with the Prime Minister's seal on it. I separated it from the rest of the post.
Thank you, Corey. That was good of you. Well, I suspect you sensed it was in answer to a letter from a foolish wife begging, pleading for her husband's future. Dizzy would be very angry with me. Well, if my pleas have been answered, I will happily bear his anger. Oh, I feel as if I've lost a handbag and I cannot bring myself to look in the one last drawer where it might be found, for fear it might not be there. Well, there's no place for him in the cabinet.
It's unthinkable that when Parliament reconvenes, Mr. Disraeli will be present not as a minister of the Crown, but merely as another member of the House of Commons.
If he's present at all. Oh, that mustn't happen. Not to Dizzy. It won't happen. Dizzy!
Morning, my dear.
Good morning.
Corey,
Morning, sir.
Have you had breakfast?
Hours ago.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. If I'd known you'd wanted company,
I could not have been happier. The right to a solitary conversationalist breakfast without giving offense to one's partner is the singular advantage marriage has over less conventional arrangements.
I'm certain that marriage has many advantages, sir.
Because you are unmarried.
Dizzy, you're very naughty.
Oh, don't mistake me, dear. I have a great respect for marriage. I've always thought that every woman should marry. No man should.
Surely for love, sir.
Oh, never marry for love. I've committed many follies in my time, but marrying for love was not one of them.
Dizzy married me for my money.
We had absolutely nothing in common. I was very sad, she was very gay. I was very conceited, she had no conceit.
He was a genius and I was a dunce. And I was older than Dizzy.
That, of course, is no longer true. There was one thing. I possessed a debt of £7,000.
And I had been left an estate of 10,000.
We put our fortunes together.
My dearest. I shall be in the rose garden.
There was no letter for me from the Prime Minister.
No, sir, there was not. These books arrived. This note was attached.
Ah. Author and publisher are in rare accord. Both hope for an outrageous success. In this hope, we are joined by author's wine merchant, author's tailor, and author's bootmaker. By all save author's valued friend.
Am I that, sir?
I've been very fond of you, Corrie, since the first moment I set eyes on you.
Really?
It was during our maiden speech to the House of Commons.
I discussed the question of fishing rights.
Did you?
The protection of baby seals was a very hotly debated issue.
I'm sure it was, but it was you and not your speech which fascinated me.
No, I spoke for 45 minutes.
At least. And somewhere near the end, you stopped during your own maiden speech, opened your mouth and yawned. I liked you from that moment forward.
Then I believe our friendship allows me the right to question your publishing another witty novel at this delicate time.
I had a desire to read a good book. Whenever I feel that desire, I write one.
I'm afraid the Tory party feels deeply the disgrace of having for its leading spokesman a novelist.
Especially a witty novelist. They may very shortly be spared that disgrace.
I hope not, sir.
Thank you, Corrie. Now we must press on if you're to meet the noon coach for London.
Will you not be with me, sir?
Mrs. John Leach.
Oh, yes, the aid of the Honourable Mr. Disraeli is sought by Mrs. John Leach, widow, in obtaining a pension for herself and her children. I've taken care to secure some evidence of the activities of the late Mr. Leach. And should your memory of him need stimuli, I suggest that you examine these.
Ah, yes, a cartoonist. His work appeared in Punch, I believe. He's not without ability.
Ability? Really, sir. He dealt in craven caricature. Disraeli, Shylock's heir, comes to Parliament. Makes you look like a beast of prey. And look at this one. It's clearly meant to be you. A fop by his clothes, wearing exaggerated gold chains and donning finger rings over his gloved fingers.
I confess there was a time.
Sir.
I'd heard that Beau Brummel wore one ring, so he was an idol of mine. I decided that 2 rings would make me his superior. And there was a time I wore 4 rings on each hand. Scarcely flexed my fingers.
Well, even your generosity, sir, cannot excuse this caption. The bumptious Jew boy.
I was bumptious, perhaps. And I was certainly a boy until well into my 30s.
No, but you were not a Jew, sir.
I was born a Jew, Corrie.
But you were baptized a Christian.
Not until I was 13 years of age.
No, but you were baptized, sir.
I had a grandmother so vain she could think of nothing else but what a lofty position she would have occupied in society had not her religion exempted her. My father was a scholar who worshipped more faithfully in the reading room of the British Museum than in any synagogue. In truth, he thought so little of such things that he allowed a friend to convince him that my sister, my brothers, and myself would get on better in this world if we belonged to the Church of England. Had it not been for these pressures, I would be a Jew in faith as well as in race.
But you are a Christian, sir. Do you not consider yourself a Christian?
I do, Corrie. But even if I'd entered the clergy and risen to become the Archbishop of Canterbury, I am sure there would still be those who would consider me a... Well, see what can be done for the widow and her children.
Sir...
They must not starve.
Leach was your enemy.
I feel no threat from my enemies. It's my friends who confound me.
We have guests. Mr. and Mrs. Gladstone.
William Gladstone
Good
here.
heavens.
They're on their way up to London. Or if you don't wish to see him, you needn't. I told them you were taking a shower bath.
Yes, but one can't shower bathe forever.
Dear, it's true, isn't it? What shall I say?
Say nothing, show them in. I always enjoy seeing Gladstone. The man fascinates me. He's been a bore for so long, he's become an institution.
Why, here he is.
Madam,
Good morning.
Mr. Gladstone.
Mr.
Do
Disraeli.
you know Mr. Corrie?
Morning, sir.
Corrie.
Madam.
I believe Mrs. Disraeli said you were taking a shower bath.
Mary Ann?
Oh, how foolish of me. Well, how could Dizzy be taking a shower bath without me?
What do you mean by that?
Well, he loves to take a cold shower, but he's such a terrible coward that I have to be there to pull string for him.
Oh, dear.
A coward? I wouldn't have suspected that of you, sir.
Timidity has always been my secret vice. Won't you be seated, ma'am?
You will take a glass of Madeira?
We can stay but a moment.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Your husband, Mrs. Gladstone, is very handsome.
Oh, dear.
Of course, I think Dizzy's handsome. Don't you?
Mr. Gladstone,
Mrs. Gladstone doesn't think about such things.
I don't think about such things.
Oh, but how can it be helped when we have such handsome husbands? Which reminds me, Dizzy was telling me last night in bed
Madam.
of a joke that's going about the London theatres. It seems that the actresses ask each other the question, to whom would you rather be married? Gladstone or Disraeli?
Actresses, oh, dear.
And the answer is...
I don't think we need concern ourselves with the answer, Mrs. Disraeli.
Oh, you must hear it. The answer is Gladstone.
William!
Yes, the answer is I would rather be married to Gladstone so that I might run off with Disraeli.
I'm afraid I don't find sin in any form amusing. We must be going.
Oh, but Mrs. Gladstone hasn't seen the garden and the primroses are in bloom. Oh, you must see them or Dizzy will be terribly hurt.
Why?
Yes, Mary Ann, why?
Why? Why, they're his favorite flower. Come along.
Mr. Gladstone.
Yes, yes, run along and see the primroses, but don't dawdle.
Corrie, thorns can be wicked. We shall need a man along.
Certainly.
I didn't think primroses had thorns.
Oh, you know flowers, don't you, my dear?
Will you be seated, sir?
I would be truthful, Mr. Disraeli.
Oh, some trouble's coming when a man is anxious to tell the truth.
I've heard a conjecture here, a sentiment there.
Rumors.
Rumors that, given certain circumstances, you might absent yourself completely from the House of Commons.
Well, there have been such rumors.
Will you retire from Parliament?
Why is it so important?
You've long been an articulate adversary to my party's hopes.
Thank you.
Whether or not you are present alters the way we use our strength. In example, sir, the Liberal Party, as you must know, has long been in favor of lowering tariff barriers to ensure the acceptance of English goods and English industry on the continent.
Yes, you Whigs have long been in favor of turning England into a workshop.
Perhaps the workshop of the world.
The world will change. It will 100 years from now be one great workshop everywhere. Who will feed England then?
Then I take it, Mr. Disraeli, that the rumors of your retirement are false. It would be a pity. It would save you untold anguish.
Even if I were not to remain in Parliament, my party would still be in power. The Conservatives will never allow your tariff reform bill to pass.
The Conservative Prime Minister's sentiments differ from yours.
I beg your
The
pardon.
bill is very popular. Sir Robert Peel has privately pledged himself to the proposition.
He was elected on principles totally opposed.
Prime Ministers can change their minds. But we were discussing you and the desirability of your retirement.
If I may enlighten you, Gladstone, I've received no communication from Peel denying me a ministry in his government.
You've not? Then your post must be late. He sent off a note to this house last night. Believe me, sir, you're free officially to consider the question of retirement.
Or to claim a prime minister's prerogative and change my mind.
That would be a mistake. Peel's not naming you in the cabinet renders you impotent in your own party. You'd only be asking for abuse. No. Be wise, sir. On hearing of your retirement, Her Majesty might be persuaded to confer a title upon you. Retire under the blight of party dissension, and that honor will be lost.
Mr. Gladstone, if this conversation is to continue, let it be an open debate on the floor of the House of Commons. Good day to you, son.
Your manners border on rudeness. Had I anticipated such treatment, madam, I would not have accepted your invitation to come here. Good day. Mrs. Gladstone?
Mrs. Gladstone was enchanted. She even knew about Primrose's not having any thorns.
Mary Ann, what do you mean by intercepting a letter from the Prime Minister to me? Now, please, give me the letter. It's addressed to you.
I wrote to him. Please forgive me, Dizzy. I was wrong. You have a right to be angry. Please forgive me.
You did that for me, my dearest.
Oh, Dizzy, I do believe you married me for my money, but I believe if you had to do it again, you'd marry me for love.
Mr. and Mrs. Gladstone, you invited them here.
As a precaution. I knew that if Sir Robert's letter was a disappointment, that Mr. Gladstone was the one man to turn that disappointment into anger and send you back into battle.
Amazing. Simply amazing.
Oh, dear. Would you believe it, Dizzy? I tricked even myself. It was Mr. Gladstone, and not Sir Robert, who was the last drawer in which to look for my handbag.
Handbag?
It's amazing. Simply amazing.
Disraeli.
Prime Minister?
I'm pleased to see you here.
Are you, sir?
Disraeli?
Rothschild, the Prime Minister.
We have met, Sir Robert and I.
The election which made you Prime Minister designated Rothschild as a Member of Parliament from the Borough of London.
I am aware of it.
I believe Rothschild's presence in this body will be most helpful.
Are you being facetious, sir?
Perhaps I'm selfish. Rothschild and I have long held similar views.
Yes.
Do you recall the occasion several years ago when you and I were in complete agreement? At the time, I failed to convince Her Majesty's government to participate in what was then described as an outrageous fantasy, a hoax. Now, what was that project? Oh, yes, the Suez Canal.
I acknowledge, Disraeli, that mistakes have been made.
I wonder. Some mistakes have never been rectified, though the opportunity's presented itself time and again. An example, Rothschild here. Duly elected Member of Parliament, elected 7 times and never been allowed to take his seat. Has that mistake been rectified?
I will repay your obtuseness with candor. Mr. Rothschild, you have for many years been indulging in a charade. If you will take the oath, you will be permitted to take your seat.
It is a Christian oath.
A formality.
I am a Jew.
They're an obstinate, unbending people.
Yes.
Mr. Rothschild, the words of this oath are, upon the true faith of a Christian. I will omit these words as not being binding upon my conscience. Mr. Rothschild, you may withdraw.
Do not lose heart. You and I, Rothschild, belong to a race that can do everything but fail.
This oath is responsible to the people. With the support
influence of his own verbosity, and gifted with an egotistical imagination which can at all times command an interminable and inconsistent series of arguments to malign an opponent and glorify himself. I do not say that the leader of the opposition is in no way distinguished. He is distinguished for his ignorance. Sir! The leader of the opposition has only one idea.
Mr. Disraeli!
Only one idea, and that is wrong.
Mr. Disraeli, sir! I would have hoped that you would be more aware of the impropriety of your behavior than to need reminder from the leader of your own party.
Peel openly on the floor of the House.
Must be done. I can delude myself no longer.
Gladstone leads the opposition. He is your adversary.
How many sessions of Parliament have witnessed our contention? And for all that's been accomplished, Gladstone and I might be debating fishing rights and the protection of baby seals. Oh, no offense, Corrie.
None taken, sir.
No, Peel is the adversary, the true adversary.
But he's the head of your own party.
Yes, in times past, he's done much for me. I've always prided myself the one quality I possessed above other men was gratitude, but well, there's no other way. I must attack him openly. See to it, Corrie, that word gets around. I should like a capacity audience for my shame.
Yes, sir.
I'm told you intend to speak against the leader of your own party. This is folly, sir.
Thank you for your advice, sir, but I'm not the Prime Minister.
You've been mislabeled, Disraeli. You're not a conservative, you're a radical.
I am both. A conservative to preserve all that is good in the government, and a radical to eradicate all that is bad.
Do not confuse righteous indignation with revenge, nor courage with ambition.
Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Maidstone wishes to be heard.
Mr. Speaker, gentlemen, it has come to my attention that the Prime Minister of England has changed parties.
What?
He was elected by the Tories, but he is behaving like a Whig. The truth, sir, travels slowly, but in time it will reach even you. Loyalty to a political party, however ungrateful that party may be, is a necessary virtue in politics.
Are you suggesting that the Prime Minister is without virtue?
I am suggesting he is suffering from a malady. His desire to do what is popular has brought on one of the most dangerous of political illnesses, contemptuous disregard for the principles which elected him.
Quite right.
This indisposition has been heretofore primarily a Whig complaint. I suspect the Prime Minister has caught it from association. He has sacrificed his own individual principles to public opinion. A public opinion made by opposition members of Parliament.
Right to move.
I suggest that Sir Robert Peel has turned his coat.
I will not tolerate this.
I suggest that the Tory, Sir Robert Peel, has become the most desirable man the Whig party could have to lead this nation.
Hear, hear.
And how has he done it? Sir Robert has found a simple expedient. He has caught the Whigs bathing and walked off with their clothes. Rather than this Whig finery, I would prefer him to don the raiment that clothes the good old causes, the cause of labor, the cause of the people, the cause of England. And I would prefer a reformation, not of the tariff laws, but a reformation of the Conservative government.
Why?
Dissolve, Mr. Prime Minister, if you please, the Parliament you have betrayed, and appeal to the people whom I believe mistrust you. For myself, there remains this, at least. The opportunity of expressing thus publicly my belief that this Conservative government is an organized hypocrisy.
That man is outrageous.
By heaven, he'll do it yet.
Do what?
Become Prime Minister of England.
That must be prevented.
You were magnificent, sir.
Fort Field.
Mr. Disraeli?
Who is this gentleman, sir?
The intolerant one? I can't recall, but the problem's simply solved. One simply says, how is the old complaint? And while you're waiting for the answer, the name comes to mind.
Disraeli?
Oh, how are you, sir? Good to see you. How is the old complaint?
We have never met. I am Colonel John Peel, Sir Robert's brother. He may have to bear your vituperations, your acid tongue, your charges of treason, but I do not. I demand satisfaction from you.
I beg your pardon.
Satisfaction, sir. The honor of our name has been sullied.
Oh, come, sir.
Are you so craven as to not accept my challenge?
No, sir. I will accept your challenge.
You can't be serious.
Mr. Corrie will act for me. You shall have satisfaction.
I won't allow this, sir.
Make the arrangements, Collie. I must go to Mrs. Disraeli.
You cannot fight a duel with this man. No gentleman in England would feel the necessity to do anything but laugh at his ridiculous challenge.
I cannot afford the luxury. Observe our fellow Tory. A spark has been lit. With any luck, it'll burst into flame. My refusal to fight would extinguish that spark. They'd say only one thing, and those who didn't say it would think it. The Jew is a coward.
Oh, Dizzy, not ready for bed. Why, I chilled a bottle of wine and cook's put aside some cold fowl for our supper.
Oh, dear. You're more a mistress to me than a wife. But I have to be up outrageously early and have a clear head. Corrie's calling for me at dawn.
What on earth for?
A boring piece of business. Forgive me if I don't discuss it. But I resent the time that would be wasted.
As you wish. Oh, dear. Your hair. I've let it get much too long. If you've an engagement tomorrow, it must be trimmed.
It's not the sort of engagement that calls for perfect grooming.
Will there be other gentlemen present?
Yes.
Then you must do as I say.
Do you know, I do believe that except for how do you do, those were the first words you ever spoke to me. Oh, dear, your hair. It's much too long.
Oh, I was correct then, and I am now.
I dare say. It was at one of Lady Blessington's parties.
Oh, yes. Mr. Disraeli, is it?
Yes, madam.
Doesn't Lady Blessington give elegant parties? Did you ever see so many diamonds and so many lovely ladies? I'm having a most delightful time, aren't you, Mr. Disraeli?
Well,
Oh, you must forgive me for rattling on and on like this when we've just been introduced. But I like you. I so like melancholy, silent men.
I don't doubt it, ma'am. You see, nature gave us 2 ears, but only 1 mouth.
Oh, sir, you are amusing. May I hope to have amused you?
Anyone amuses me once, madam. A new acquaintance is like a new book. I prefer it even bad to a classic.
Oh, Dizzy, how wicked you were and how conceited.
You must allow every man the right to be conceited until he's successful. And I was such an abysmal failure. I felt as young Caesar must have, bewailing the fact he wasn't born Alexander. I'd envisioned such a spectacle for my life. One continued grand procession from manhood to the grave. Such dreams, to be so compromised to the sad substitute of literature and the second rank of politics.
My dearest.
But for you, I sense no feeling of acceptance, let alone affection.
Oh, Dizzy. Dear Dizzy, why there are so many that feel affection for you. Corey.
And one other, just one other.
Well, if you are disliked by some people, you know perfectly well why. It's your politics.
No, it's not my politics they dislike, it's myself. And do you know, I tell you this in embarrassment. I've been told, and I know it to be true, the Queen dislikes me. That thought saddens me.
Why, she's never met you.
Nonetheless, I should like to be liked by my Queen.
My love.
Am I wrong to care so deeply?
No. No.
Why do I love the English so much more than they love me? Or indeed than they seem to love themselves?
Must I tell you?
Yes.
It's because... Oh, dear. The roots are showing a bit
Oh,
grey.
Marianne, really?
It's because you're a foreigner.
I was born at number 6 King's Road, Gray's Inn, London.
But you're an outsider.
I feel English.
Oh, you're more English than the English. That's why you're so concerned with empire and with grandeur and with India and the colonies. It's the Oriental in you.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's always been quite plain to me. You want India, in example, to be part of England, just as you want to unite the Englishman in you with the Oriental in you.
I've never heard such foolishness. I'm a failure. Plain, not fancy.
This will pass. You mark my words. You will, in a very few years, be considered one of the greatest men of your day. There. I hope the gentleman with whom you have the engagement will appreciate my efforts. How handsome you look. You know, often when I hear ladies admiring the beauty of Greek statues, I think to myself, I wish they could see my Dizzy in his bath.
Good morning, Corey.
Good morning, sir.
I hope you're going to behave like a proper, experienced second.
Sir, you will have no need of a second. The challenge has been withdrawn. There will be no duel.
I don't understand.
Sir Robert Peel has met with a dreadful accident, a fall from his horse.
I'm sorry to hear that,
Sir,
Corey, but...
the Prime Minister is dead.
Peel dead?
The Queen has asked Lord Derby to form a government. Lord Derby wishes you to accept a ministry in his cabinet and asks that you join him in Downing Street at once.
Dizzy.
My dearest.
Dear Dizzy.
No.
A cabinet minister.
No,
at last.
You must go back to bed.
No, I'm all right.
The air is bitter.
In a very few years, I was wrong. It was a very few hours.
Come, dear, come.
Go, my love. Don't keep the Prime Minister waiting.
My congratulations, sir. A step long delayed.
Over the fallen body of Sir Robert Peel.
You mustn't feel that, sir.
But I do, Corrie, I do. Look at it as you will. Politics is a beastly profession. Asks to be forgiven, Lord Derby. It's her custom to rest after luncheon. She'll join us presently.
Of course. I see you've published another novel, Mr. Disraeli.
Forgive me.
Yeah. I sometimes have to remind myself that you're a novelist. You rarely mention your writing.
An author who talks about his own books is as bad as a mother who talks about her children. And in truth, I consider myself first and foremost a Chancellor of the Exchequer.
And a fine one. Though I confess that at first I had misgivings.
They couldn't have equaled my own.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if a Prime Minister's worth can be judged by the distress of his gout, then I am greater than Pitt and Chatham put together.
Oh, excuse me. Oh. Am I disturbing you?
No.
How is Mrs. Disraeli?
She's resting.
The dear woman ate nothing at lunch. One must eat to live.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had no idea there was anything serious.
My wife has been a very sick woman for more than 3 years. I know that not from her, but from her doctor. Her illness is never mentioned. She pretends, I pretend. Let us continue to pretend.
Of course.
Now, what urgent business brings you here, Prime Minister?
Well, it concerns your future, Mr. Disraeli, and my conviction that you are the logical man to succeed me as Prime Minister. I've already spoken to the Queen.
Well, that should put an end to it.
Well, I will admit that since the death of the Prince Consort, Her Majesty has become even more firmly convinced of, well, what she has always felt. Nevertheless, that does not deter me.
I am sorry, Lord Derby. I am needed here.
Oh, Mr. Corrie, will you excuse us, please?
Of course.
Thank you. Mr. Disraeli, I fear I do not have your dear wife's courage. I cannot pretend that I am not a sick man. The pain will not allow me to wear that mask. And unfortunately, the duties of a Prime Minister must be borne under the full scrutiny of the public eye. I can no longer help myself. I must resign.
One cannot blame the pear tree for its inability to bear plums.
I am reminded, Mr. Disraeli, you are an author. But ironic as it may sound, coming on the heels of my admission, you have an obligation to your country.
I also have an obligation to my wife.
Dizzy.
Marianne?
Oh, my dearest. You're to be Prime Minister.
That has not yet been decided.
Oh, but you must. Mustn't he, Lord Derby?
He must.
Do you know, Lord Derby, that when Dizzy was courting me, he once advised me, very seriously, to save all his love letters.
Oh, Marianne.
He said he was quite certain that someday any letters of his would be worth a guinea apiece.
I said 10 guineas, and I was right.
Oh, Dizzy, your dream has come true. And my dream has come true. It has always been to be the wife of the Prime Minister of England.
My dear.
You've done it, sir. You've won your way to the highest rung of the political ladder.
Yes, well, let's say I've made it to the top of the greasy pole.
Your Majesty, he is waiting. Mr. Disraeli is waiting.
And we did not approve of his conduct towards Sir Robert Peel. But we must now ask this Mr. Disraeli to kiss hands and become Prime Minister of England.
Ma'am, Mr. Disraeli has had to make his way. Men who make their way must say and do things which are not necessary for those for whom positions are provided.
Albert did not approve of him.
Not wishing to contest the opinion of the late Prince, I remind you, our constitutional monarchy...
Lord Derby, we are aware of our obligations. Oh, send him in. Send in your Mr. Disraeli.
If Your Majesty will excuse me.
We are told we must ask you to form a government. What sort of government would you form?
An English government, ma'am.
That is no guarantee of anything nowadays. The way the House of Commons does go on. The Queen has been really shocked by some of the episodes which have occurred.
May I be allowed to thank you, ma'am, for sharing with me this candid opinion. And I would hope it is only the first of many such confidences.
We have a great many opinions, Mr. Disraeli.
If I could be privy to them, no greater help could I ask in pursuing the faithful administration of your wishes.
We have found it customary, Mr. Disraeli, for prime ministers never to refuse or contradict, but invariably forget.
One crime I shall never be guilty of, Your Majesty, is lack of consideration for your wishes.
Very well, then. Consider this. It is my wish that this nation go to war with Russia.
I believe Russia is at present rather occupied by her war with Turkey.
Precisely. If Russia should conquer Turkey, she would be in a position to control the Dardanelles, to endanger England's passage to her Indian colonies.
I presume Your Majesty is referring to the Suez Canal.
Precisely, Mr. Disraeli. That canal may be owned and controlled by foreigners, but 3/4 of the shipping that goes through it is British. The Suez Canal is not a fantasy, Mr. Disraeli.
No, ma'am, indeed it is not.
Very well, then. Surely you can see that Russia is a threat to the canal? I am afraid of the Russians. We must go to war with them.
I don't believe we should be driven into war through fear of war.
Mr. Disraeli, do not read the newspapers.
I am wary of newspapers, ma'am. I believe that nothing in them is ever quite true. That's why they're so popular.
Your opinion conflicts with that of the experts.
I am also wary of experts. If you believe the doctors, nothing is ever quite wholesome. If you believe the soldiers, nothing is quite safe. And if you believe the theologians, nothing is quite innocent.
You're not a Darwinian, are you?
As to whether we descended from apes or angels, I am on the side of the angels.
You seriously believe we have nothing to fear from Russia?
No, ma'am, no.
And what of the rest of Europe? Is it to have naught but England's good health at heart?
Unfortunately, no.
Who is the culprit then, Turkey?
No, ma'am.
Certainly not France.
No.
Who then?
Prussia and Prince Bismarck.
Bismarck.
Bismarck's the most dangerous man in Europe, with the possible exception of William Gladstone.
We suspect that is a joke.
Not entirely, ma'am.
I must confess, Mr. Disraeli, you mystify me. Would dear Albert were alive.
Yes, ma'am, would indeed he were alive.
Did you know the Prince, Mr. Disraeli?
I had the great fortune to meet him once. He was the only man I ever met who realized the ideal. He blended tenderness and vigor, romantic energy and classic repose. My brief acquaintance with him was one of the most satisfactory incidents of my life. There was in him a union of the manly grace of chivalry with the intellectual splendor of the Attic academe.
You, Mr. Disraeli, are the only person I have ever met who truly appreciated him.
I felt a kinship to him, ma'am. Each of us was, in his own way, a foreigner.
Mr. Disraeli, will you upon receipt of high position, will you behave with somewhat less temerity than you have in the past? Will you conduct yourself in a manner befitting a prime minister? Will you curb excess?
If Your Majesty will allow me one last excess, luxuriant gratitude.
You must kiss hands.
I've given her something that will make her sleep.
I should not leave the house tonight.
Your presence here would be of little medical benefit to her. Though I believe that you might benefit by it.
Ah, a touch of gout, nothing serious.
At your age, Prime Minister, everything is serious.
I should be glad to stay here this evening, sir.
Thank you, Corrie. May I see her?
Of course.
Without saying goodbye.
I hate to go, but Rothschild's been a good friend. And this occasion's worth celebrating. When Parliament reconvenes, he will be allowed to take the oath on an Old Testament and be able to take his seat.
It's all you're doing, Dizzy. You must feel very proud.
Well, it's an occasion.
Oh, convey my congratulations. Although, dearest, if you were to send word tonight that you're indisposed, I'm sure he would understand.
He has information for me.
Ah. Then I understand, Prime Minister.
Now then.
Well, be sure you take a warm rug in the carriage.
You must put away your pen and not tie yourself.
The Queen has sent me a copy of a new book she has just written. Journal of Our Life in the Highlands.
I, too, received one.
And she sent around the kindest note, hoping for a quick recovery. You must read it, Dizzy. She talks of nothing else but you. I do believe you made her fall in love with you.
Why should Victoria be different from all the other women in the world?
Dizzy. What sort of outrageous things have you been saying to her?
My conversations with the Queen are as fine and deferential as my relationship. I never complain, I never explain.
You pretend to be such a cynic, to hide the great romantic that you are. How you must love to sweep and swirl and play the courtier of Her Majesty.
Oh, I must confess there have been times when I've made use of flattery.
Diplomacy.
Yeah, I found that when it comes to royalty, flattery...
Chivalry.
No, flattery must be laid on with a trowel. Oh, now, I've shocked you.
The Queen needs something more from you, Dizzy. She is different from all the other women in the world. You must not deceive her. Remember, my dearest, that Victoria, for all Her Majesty, is a woman alone.
Good night.
My love. Oh, Dizzy. You're as feeble as I am.
This house is becoming a hospital. But a hospital with you is worth a palace with anyone else.
trust you're having an enjoyable evening.
I am grateful for the opportunity to meet under the excuse of social obligation. I fear that a business meeting between the head of Rothschild's bank and the Prime Minister of England would set the stock exchange quivering even more than is desirable. Have you information?
I've heard from our representatives in Africa. News that has not yet been received by Her Majesty's government. The Khedive of Egypt is in serious financial difficulties, personal debts, gambling primarily. In the past, our bank, or one of my brothers, usually Rothschild de Fils, occasionally the Vienna House, has extended credit to him.
The Khedive of Egypt owns 50% of the Suez Canal. Is that no longer good collateral?
Not with so profligate an owner. He wishes to sell. Prince Bismarck with Mr. Gladstone and Count Andrassy, they're coming this way.
What is the price?
20 million pounds. Good evening. What do you do?
Such a sum would have to be raised through Parliament,
where debate could drag on for months.
Fortunately, Parliament is not in session. I will speak to Her Majesty.
Had I the authority, Prince Bismarck, I'd put an end to these Bulgarian atrocities by sending British troops into the Balkans.
Well, Mr. Prime Minister, you have the authority. How do you feel?
I protest against meeting atrocities with atrocities.
I don't think you understand what's going on there, Mr. Disraeli. I've just published a pamphlet on the Bulgarian atrocities. I should be glad to send you a copy.
I have read it. And of all the atrocities, Mr. Gladstone, I believe your pamphlet to be the worst.
Gentlemen, you'll excuse me.
When we met this evening, I had an impression. I told Count Andrassy, and I was right. That one is schwach, is second-rate. But the Altejude, the old Jew, that is the man. Yeah.
Very flattering. I am in complete agreement.
Is it true, Herr Rothschild, that your brother's vineyards have produced another exquisite vintage? Huh?
Won't you be the judge of that, Your Excellency, please?
Prussia lies closer to Bulgaria than England does. I would be grateful for the thoughts from you, Prince Bismarck, on this matter.
I give it no thought. I am too concerned with the future of my country.
What is Prussia's future?
Prussia will unify the German states under her control, absorb Count Andrassy's Austria, and eventually conquer the rest of Europe.
We must beware of you, Prince Bismarck. You mean what you say.
Why, cannot Prussia have her dreams of empire as well as England? You delight me. You think you are the only one that know what is happening in the world, eh? You English are so, English.
But I feel so English. I must meet my queen first thing tomorrow morning, so I will say good night.
I am pleased you could come.
Mr. Disraeli. It's Mrs. Disraeli, sir. She...
Mr. Disraeli, my deepest sympathy.
My own dear husband, if I should depart this life before you, leave orders that we may be buried in the same grave at whatever distance you may die from England. God bless you, my dearest, kindest. You have been a perfect husband to me. Farewell, my dear Dizzy. Do not live alone. someone I earnestly hope you may find as attached to you as your own devoted Mary Ann.
She was the most cheerful and courageous woman I ever knew. We were married for 33 years, and no moment of it was dull. Now, when I ask my coachman to drive me home, I feel it's a mockery. I must apologize for this display of grief, but I know that you, of all people, can understand my loss.
Are you in pain?
I believe that gout is the occupational disease of prime ministers.
You shall have a chair.
To sit in the presence of my sovereign.
I insist.
Oh, I thank you, ma'am. There are many things I no longer have the strength to attend to. I've even had to let my hair go gray.
At times like these, we must be grateful for the responsibilities that make the unrestricted indulgence of sorrow impossible.
Yes.
I have been going over your reports. The proposed purchase of the Suez Canal shares, now owned by the Khedive of Egypt, seems most urgent.
Most urgent, ma'am.
What would be the advantage of ownership?
I won't bother your majesty with the fiscal and military aspect, but rather I would confide the ingredient that such an imagination as your majesty's can understand.
Imagination?
We authors, ma'am, is not imagination, our curse.
Oh, yes,
now,
yes.
The purchase would secure the passage to India. And the canal would then, in truth, be the lifeline of empire. The way would then be open for the fulfillment of my long-cherished hope, and that is to see your majesty crowned Empress of India.
Empress of India?
I believe it is a plan of which the Prince Consort would have approved.
Do you really think so?
I do, ma'am.
You must secure the consent of your cabinet to this, then naught remains but to find the 20 million pounds. You may tell the Bank of England that Her Majesty is personally interested. Oh. Empress of India. Oh, my dear Mr. Disraeli, there is no title, no honor, which can ever repay the debt we owe you. When he who was most dear was taken from us, I began to fear that without his devotion, his kindness, his counsel, I would find this sovereignty unbearable. You have come to allay that fear by your constant concern for what he would have felt. You have always understood our loss, as we must now tragically understand yours. And you have always known my secret. You have always known that the Queen can never for one moment forget the sorrowful fact that she is a woman alone.
No.
What is it, sir?
Your Majesty must excuse me.
What is it, Mr. Disraeli? Are you ill?
No, ma'am, deeply distressed.
Sir, I am at a loss.
I never realized till now that I have sometimes dealt with you, if not dishonorably, ignobly.
Mr. Disraeli, you must not say anything you will regret.
Ma'am, I can no longer be anything but unflinchingly honest. There have been times when, to secure your approval, I have laid flattery on with a trowel. Times when I have taken even greater advantage, when I have made use of your tragic loss for my own selfish ends.
And even today, Mr. Disraeli, was today one of those times?
I fear habit made it so. But this confession springs not from habit, but from gratitude. Gratitude so profound it's beyond my capacity to express. I have never ceased to wonder at my good fortune in having a female sovereign. And now that I am alone, I feel more than good fortune. I feel a great
debt. There's one person left to me in this life that I love, and Victoria is that person. I say this to you not as Her Majesty's Prime Minister, but as her friend. My debt to you, Mom, is increased by your hearing of this confession. If your Majesty could forgive me and excuse this last excess.
Mr. Disraeli, you must allow me one last excess. Luxuriant gratitude.
Mr. Prime Minister, my position as chairman of the board of directors of the Bank of England does not authorize me to lend you 20 million pounds.
Then what is the good of your position?
Well, no matter how personally interested Her Majesty may be, the other directors must be consulted. The loan must be discussed.
How long would that take?
Well, we're all aware of a certain urgency.
How long?
Well, providing there are no serious objections, you could have the money in a matter of a month or two.
But in a matter of a day or two, the Khedive shares will be sold to the first buyer.
Well, you must understand that 20 million pounds is a great deal of money.
Thank you, Lord Malloy, for that expert financial advice.
Mr. Prime Minister, if I may further instruct you in matters of finance, I am but one individual. The individuals in this world who can make available to you 20 million pounds merely for the asking are rare. Indeed, I doubt if any such men exist at all.
My lord, you are wrong. By one.
Prime Minister at this hour. Show him in.
Mr. Disraeli?
Ah, how good of you to call.
Good evening.
May I induce you to share my lonely supper?
No, thank you.
A glass of wine?
No, thank you. I have come on a matter of business.
Oh, an extraordinary time for business, but I presume the Prime Minister of England need not be bound by banker's hours. Won't you sit down?
No, I won't.
Do you mind if I do?
Please.
Thank you.
I wish to purchase those shares in the Suez Canal owned by the Khedive. And for that purchase, I wish to borrow a sum of money.
A sum of money?
20 million pounds.
What security do you offer?
The British Empire.
You shall have the money within 24 hours. Victoria, Queen of England.
And Empress of India.
The Empress thanks Mr. Disraeli.
Go.
What is it, sir?
How is he?
He's a terribly sick man.
Is he in danger?
His condition is serious, but not critical.
Nonsense. I have never been serious, but I've always been critical.
We didn't mean to wake you, sir.
I am grateful for any consciousness that may be allowed me.
You must not be pessimistic, Mr. Disraeli.
Dr. Jenner, when a man believes he is going to die, he does not like to lose the interest that such a situation produces.
There is a note from the Queen, sir.
She probably wants me to take a message to Albert.
And she sent you these primroses.
Primroses?
She said they're your favorite flower.
The primroses are in bloom. Oh, you must see them, or Dizzy will be terribly hurt. They're his favorite flower.
A note from Her Majesty, sir. What is it, sir?
Mr. Disraeli.
Sir, what on earth are you doing?
Help me, Corrie.
Sir, this is unthinkable. You're not strong enough to get out of bed.
I was strong enough to forge an empire. I shall be the judge of my ability to take a walk I have taken 1,000 times. Help me with my clothes, Corrie.
Yes, sir.
Help you, sir?
No, thank you, Corrie. I prefer to be alone.
Of course, sir.
Oh, Corrie. Will they know?
I don't believe so, sir.
Good, good. They must not. Not yet.
Yes, sir.
You're Disraeli, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Robert Peel.
Sir Robert.
You're the new member from Maidstone.
I am.
I presume you intend to make a maiden speech.
I've prepared some remarks about the proposed Suez Canal.
Yes, well, if I may presume to give advice to someone so full of the enthusiasm of youth, the Suez Canal's a fantasy, a hoax. It can never become a reality. I seriously counsel you against introducing such a subject.
Do you excuse me, Sir Robert?
Yes, sir.
Sir?
William Gladstone, splendid fellow, came down from Oxford in '36. They say there's less drinking among the students to this day because Gladstone was there. Yes, well, now, where were we? Oh, yes, your speech. I would suggest some sound, acceptable topic. Fishing rights, for example. Or the protection of baby seals is a passionately debated issue.
Sir Robert, I'm Lionel Rothschild. I've been elected from the Borough of London.
Ah, yes. This is Mr. Disraeli of Maidstone.
How do you do?
It seems there's to be some problem as to your swearing in.
It would appear so.
Well, you have been advised, sir. The responsibility is yours.
Yes, sir. That is so.
Yes. Oh, just one thing more. As to the manner of your speech, you are, I believe, a novelist. What they call a witty novelist. I must beg of you not to be witty here.
The words of this oath are, upon the true faith of a Christian. I would omit these words as not being binding upon my conscience.
Mr. Rothschild, you may withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, will the chair recognize the member from Maidstone?
The chair so recognizes.
Honourable Speaker, gentlemen, I had intended speaking on the proposed Suez Canal, but I shall not. Because on the occasion of my first presence in this august body, I have been witness to an outrage. Perhaps it is ingenuous of me to feel such shock and surprise at the rejection of this most valuable man, the honourable member from the Borough of London. Perhaps this outrage is no more than the following of precedent. You English once had a great man, Sir Walter Raleigh, who discovered potatoes on which the Irish now live. and tobacco on which the English now live. And your reward to him was to cut off his head. We are approaching the season of Christmas, the sacred time, which I assume this august body will celebrate by petitioning against the Jews.
This is a Christian body.
Whose birthday is it that we Christians celebrate? It is the birth of a Jew. Were the Holy Family on this coming Christmas Eve to seek shelter in this house, would you gentlemen extend to them the comforts of your manger? Though I sit down now, the time will come when you will hear me.
This will pass. You mark my words. You will, in a very few years, be considered one of the greatest men of your day. How handsome you look.
I have spent more than 3 decades in this house. I shall not set foot here again. I am sad at the thought, but honored by the cause. Tradition and the inviolate rights of Englishmen dictate that this house shall be forever closed to peers of the realm. Her Gracious Majesty Victoria, Queen of England and Empress of India, has seen fit to make me an English nobleman. Henceforth, I shall be the first Earl of Beaconsfield. Gentlemen, I bid you good day. We shall not meet here again.
Not at all, sir.
It rang in my ears like nothing so ponderous as an epitaph.
Really, Mr. Disraeli? Lord Beaconsfield?
Well, I shall be needing an epitaph soon enough, shan't we all?
Not quite yet, sir.
Lord Beaconsfield, if it was an epitaph, if I am dead, one thing is certain. I am in heaven, Greer.